Welcome, everybody, to the show. Joining me is our intrepid co-host and fellow traveler, Dancing Dan, the Dancing Man, with his
How's it
fine
going,
little pork pie hat, which is a perfect hat.
What's up?
So I think we will agree. Not too much, not too much. Just drama. So
Drama.
that's all we got over here. This is interesting.
What? Stigler's in the house. William, hello from Ontario, Canada. Hello, William. Stacking limit. Meandering Mike. Hun 644. It's
They're all here. Everybody, thanks for joining. We're going to talk about Lock and Load Publishing today and their various lines of games.
They're flying with their computer stuff, man.
Yeah, I hope that's going well for them. Actually, I just want to share this this news item that has come across my desk here. Just Stigler was seen at an unnamed event representing Decision Games and Oregon Laminations Counterclippers. We're going to be getting many weeks of mileage out of this news story, folks. News you can use. News you can use. Essential wargaming peripherals. What's that?
I didn't know he was a fan of solo games.
He loves solo games, as you know.
Yeah.
So, welcome everybody. So,
it's that kind of a show.
It's that kind of a show. So, Lock and Load. What have you played from Lock and Load?
What have I played? You know what? It's funny that you say that, but I was going to play. What the hell was it, man? Geez, I forgot, but it was a what do you call that system there? The Heroes of something. I think it was the Heroes of Normandy, and I wanted to play the
Heroes of Normandy is okay, so that's Lock and Load Tactical.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. I played it a couple years ago, probably 6 or 7 years ago now, to be honest about it. But I liked it, and there's a new rule book. It's not even new anymore. There's a new rule book out since then. That was, I decided I was sticking with ASL. But that system was, I thought, the best alternative to ASL that I came across in a kind of a concerted effort to try and find a squad level World War II tactical game that
but
I found is adequate.
It's not anally detailed like ASL.
If you download the big rule book, there's a lot there. It's not like ASL, but where it's got rules for every piece of minutia you could possibly want. But it's not I would say at that level necessarily an entry level game, but that's got more in that downloadable rule book than you're getting in one of the boxes or the Ziploc thing that you got, for example.
Well, I wouldn't say this game is overly complex, man.
No, I wouldn't either. So, so I'm actually quite excited about Glory and Empire. It's a nice looking Napoleonic battalion level Napoleonic game. The first two battles are coming any time pretty much. And while they're relatively obscure, they're important battles, actually. It's Vimero and what's the other one? Two Peninsular War battles, basically. And Rolica. That's how I'm going to pronounce that anyway. But their production values are really nice. The Glory and Empire was kickstarted. I want to say they're going to be mounted boards too, which is exceptionally impressive. I'd really like to see them do, assuming this takes off, I'd like to see them do more stuff, and bigger battles would be great. These battles are not tiny battles, but they're not huge battles either. So,
yeah, just to cut you off and change subject. What I like about this,
heaven forbid we change the subject here on this show.
What I like about this is that actually David Heath is not even a big fan of these like what is it? What happens here? Hold on a second.
I don't know I don't even know what's happening here.
Hold on, I'll show you. You do these stores. It's almost like an ambush type thing, So you read the
yes, Jeff Baylor, the Canadian pork pie hat is also called a pork pie hat, except it's rolled in breadcrumbs. So you were saying,
I was saying. Oh yeah. So you know, you read the rules and then they tell you stop, stop, don't read this, and that's cool. I like that. I like surprises. So it's like an ambush type thing. You know. Oh my god.
so yeah, and they did the World at War 85 Kickstarter a few years ago now, and well, I did not get in on that because it's out of my topic space. Somebody brought it to Winterfest 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I think, something like that, and I pawed through it, and it was they delivered a lot of stuff. So
you're talking about Lock and Load, the amount of stuff they have.
yeah, well, for World War 85, that was all part of that initial Kickstarter, and I think they've
They
done
have a lot of
other
stuff.
stuff since then. But
They have a lot of stuff. Period, man. I mean, seriously.
mm-hmm.
I wonder, they're not pushing their heroes of whatever very much anymore? Are they? Are they like
that is Lock and Load Tactical?
Yeah, but are they pushing the Lock and Load Tactical World War II stuff, or are they just running out of it and they're gonna go?
That's
they're
a
gonna
good
go.
question. So this kind of raises a good question in general about sort of infinitely expandable game system type war games, right?
Jesus, we should have David Heath on.
Like ASL. But you know, where do you stop with the expansions, right? ASL did all their nationality packs and then they were done. And that leaves us only with, you know, more scenarios, more historical modules, and that kind of stuff. So,
well, I'm wondering if they're going to go all digital.
I found that Lock and Load Tactical to be substantially, well, I mean, if you look at the game system like as a whole, I mean, you're going to come away with an answer that sounds an awful lot like, yes, it's way more accessible than ASL. But you also don't have to necessarily you know, learn every piece of ASL to start playing ASL, right? If you and I'm not even talking if you're starting with starter kit. If you're, you know, you just start playing basic infantry scenarios and start with that. That end of ASL is not that complicated. So I missed it. Yeah, so the designer of Glory and Empire actually was also the designer of La Bataille de la Moskva too, the more recent version from Clash of Arms, as I recall. I'm just choking on Terry Doherty, choking on spelling Moskva. But this would have been Sickles' leg, actually, John. I'm pretty sure you're thinking of it in the pickling brine. I'm reasonably sure. It's Stephen Roberts points out new Lock and Load Tactical Module Bitter Harvest due soon. I thought that was out actually, but obviously I'm nuts. But they've also got this Nations at War system, which I believe is World War II. I might be wrong. They do a lot of tactical stuff. So after I think kind of a long time of fussing with tactical stuff, is I've come to the conclusion that I'm not incredibly, God damn this chair, that I'm not incredibly into modern or near modern tactical stuff. Which is kind of why I haven't ventured outside of ASL, and I've even cut back on ASL buying. I didn't get that St. Mary Glees module that they just released, for example.
What does that cost?
It was like $75 or something. It's pretty reasonably priced, but it's you know, I think it's three or four maps. I think it's 3 maps and like 2 counter sheets and some scenarios and stuff. So, and they're big maps too. They're like oversized maps. So there is a game on the War of the Triple Alliance, which actually was a CSR finalist for last year. Which is called, oddly enough, the War of the Triple Alliance. And I have heard nothing but absolutely rave reviews about that, by the way. It's from NAC or NAC War Games, as I recall. And I thought about buying it, but then I looked it up on BGG, and it's like a point-to-point map, and that's a little bit of a turn off. So I ended up not getting it, but you know, that doesn't mean it won't happen. But it's supposed to be really, really good. And it's certainly a topic that you don't see a lot of war games on. Not zero, but not many.
Would you start a newbie on the lock and load tactical system?
So, I mean, this is a topic we've sort of a question we've explored before as well.
Yeah.
Um, I think the best newbie war game, and really whatever kind of game you're talking about, you talk about RPGs. That's this is exactly true for that too. The best first war game is the war game that your buddy wants to teach you and that you're interested in, right? I think it's much more important to find a topical thing that you're into. I mean, war games are all about the topic, man. I know Uwe has a different opinion on this, but I suspect that that's a minority opinion in the wargaming space. But then again, Uwe's not just selling inside the wargaming space either, so he's making like actual money.
Yeah.
For war gamers, it tends to revolve in a really, really tight relationship around interest in the topic. So if somebody's super into World War II, I would look for a World War II game to start them with. And if and there's plenty of if you're really into, you thought Band of Brothers was awesome, the battle scenes in Band of Brothers anyway was awesome, or Saving Private Ryan or whatever. I'd say as long as you got somebody to teach you, I don't think Lock and Load Tactical is difficult to approach at all. Tank on Tank's another one. That's even simpler though. That's a really simple. Very simple game. That's a Dan worthy game. In fact, it's so simple. So,
and would you say Band of Brothers? Because Jim Crone is really good with rules, like and teaching you how to play the game. Would you say Band of Brothers is easier to learn than a Lock and Load Tactical?
So I've never played Band of Brothers. My understanding is that it is a sort of related system. And I am a little unclear as to exactly what that relationship is. So
I mean, it's Jim Crone. Jim Crone is pretty awesome.
Well, the only Jim Crone thing I've played is Space Empires 4X, which is phenomenal. So, good for Jim Crone. So,
did you see how many expansions are out for that now?
Well, there's 2.
And they're coming out with like a big monster thing now.
It's just the last expansion. It's being billed. It's called All Good Things, which is a great title. And it's billed as the last Space Empires 4X expansion. And a lot of what it's going to do, it's going to add some more options. And it's going to kind of consolidate the rule book into one master rule book and the scenario book into one master scenario book or 2 scenario books. I think there's going to be like a separate solitaire rule book, and it's going to come in a 4-inch box, which means that the idea of putting it all in the same box is not totally
never going to fit.
Well, we'll see. I one of the first things I looked at when I got the 3D printer up and running and started designing trays and stuff like that was okay, cool space. So like there's a shelf that's now outside the room here where all the bins of various game parts that I couldn't get in the box are stored, right? It's like literally an entire shelf. And so, that's one of the things on that shelf, and that's in like 7 smallish bins. And so I started pawing through the stuff, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I can get all this in even the 3-inch box that thing comes with the board and mounted board and all that. I'd kind of like to have an unmounted map for it, to be completely honest. But it's great game. I agree with Stigler here. I have learned a lot of wargaming drives my interest in history. So I found that when I got into Napoleonic wargaming, I started buying Napoleonic books. When I got into Civil War wargaming, I started buying Civil War books. That is my story, where it's Mark Herman's fault that I'm now big into Civil War. So old school tactical versus lock and load. Good. That's a good call. Old school tactical simpler, in my opinion. It's got really good production values. The map,
Bloody hell.
I will say this isn't really a negative, right? But the maps are too big to fit on a standard size. The old school tactical maps. The maps are too big to fit on a standard size 2.5 foot wide folding table. And for a long time, that was my table, was a 2.5 foot folding table. So I'm like, well, I guess I got to get rid of this. So I did, but the production values are really good.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to play. It's very approachable. The maps are not geomorphic like they are in ASL or Lock and Load
No.
Tactical. So you have, I think there is like a scenario generator thing, but you've got the maps that you've got, right? And they're huge. They're like, I mean, if you think about A Most Fearful Sacrifice, we got those 2 huge mounted maps. That's the size maps we're talking about. So it's really big. That's less than well, there you go. And there's a bunch of stuff out for that now too, right? So there's plenty to do there, but their pace of release has been, I wouldn't say slow, but there's not a million products out for that. There are kind of a million products out for Lock and Load Tactical, but it's all modular, right? It's not like there's not like this giant flow chart of product dependencies like you got with ASL. You can just buy whatever box you want to buy based on topical interest. You like East Front, you like West Front, buy that box, and off you go. So from a just total package approachability standpoint, I feel like Lock and Load Tactical has a little bit of an edge, but from a system standpoint, I think the old school tactical system is a little bit, it's easier to deal with.
And there's like 20 pages of rules, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
With big writing. Big.
They, yes, there was a Patton who was a brigade commander in the Civil War. That's true. And I think you see, was that the character that Ted Turner played in Gettysburg, or was that an ancestor of Ted's? I forget which one that is.
Ted Turner was in the movie.
He's got a cameo of getting shot in the face in Gettysburg. I mean, he paid for the movie, so that Ted, you want to be in the movie? I guess we got to find a place for you. So this would be cool. North Africa Med for Volume 4 for Old School Tactical. That would be cool. So I do feel like both Flying Pig and Lock and Load do a lot of tactical stuff. And like I said, after kind of a long time of struggling with it and buying a lot of different tactical games, and it's not like I don't have any tactical games, but the tactical games I have are either ASL or they're ancients or medieval or American Civil War or something like that, right? Rather than, actually, I'd say I got a couple that are kind of World War I as well. But that interest is topic driven. I'd also like to point out, I don't have the picture with me, and I've rearranged things since I took the picture anyway, but I'd just like to observe that so let me ask you this, and actually let me throw it into the chat too. What are the top 3 topics represented in your personal wargaming library, the war games that you've got? We'll start with you, Dan.
Solo, tactical, and
like historical topics, World War II, Civil War.
Oh, I would say World War II.
I think that's real safe for everybody. It's probably World War II.
That's my first. World War II.
Okay.
I would go next. You know what? Funny, eh? American Civil War. And then I branch off into stuff like sci-fi type stuff. So
okay, that's fair. Sci-fi is a category.
That would be it for me, man.
Stacking Load says Normandy, Belgian, Market Garden, which is World War II. So we're gonna call that World War II. My number one topic is maybe I should say category is World War II by a lot. Okay, and I've got the way I count it is a little bit weird because I don't count anything that's an expansion or not standalone. I don't count it as an entry, but I've got about 450 games, something like that. World War II is probably almost 40% of that. It's a lot. Number 2 is now definitively Napoleonics. I have now kind of a lot of Napoleonic stuff. And as the year goes on, it's one of my, kind of goals for the year is to do more Napoleonic stuff. And number 3, and I'm kind of eyeballing this going because I don't have the actual pie chart, which I have, but I got to update that database. I'm kind of going by like linear shelf feet rather than by number of titles. Is going to be American Civil War. Number 4 is probably World War One, which I found interesting that I've got that many World War One games. So,
and stuff like, for me, stuff like Vietnam War, I don't know, scares the shit out of me. I don't know why.
I've got 3 games on the Vietnam War.
And
none of which is tactical, I would say. I think they're all operational or strategic. So, HUN 644 says World War II, American Civil War, and Medieval. Timon 6219 says 7 Years War, which is very interesting. Napoleonics and World War II. There is, there's maybe more 7 Years War stuff than people think. But a lot of the games that we do tend to be not called 7 Years War. They tend to be, Battle of, whatever some of the battles are called. I'm drawing of Zorndorf is one of the battles, for example. Dave 1013 says World War II, American Civil War, and then mixed. Number 5 for me, I think, is probably actually Ancients. Ancients is probably number 4. World War One's probably number 5. And then after that, it's miscellaneous, where I got 2 or 3 things.
See, Jeff Beeler says Canada, obscure topics and naval. So at the War of 1812, Canada was involved, wasn't it?
Canada was involved in the American Revolutionary War as well.
That's true. And you know what? I'd really like to get into stuff like the Quebec Wars, the Canadian Wars,
So the Canadian Wars. So I've been bucking for a game for a long time about the Battle of the Scheldt estuary in 1944. And there's remarkably few games on that topic. Probably the best example I could think of is Ryan Heilmann's game from HOLLANDSPIELE called the Scheldt Campaign. That was fought largely by Canadians, and Montgomery decided they weren't going to get any bullets, so it was kind of slow going. I might also point out 1812 War on the Great Lakes Frontier, which is on the frontier of Canada at the time. That's a relatively new release from Compass. That looks extremely promising, and I know it's extremely well researched. Canada seems to be an obscure topic. Peter Rushton says World War II, Cold War gone hot, Arab-Israeli wars. Ooh, I've got exactly 0 games on that. However, that said, that's going to change, and maybe as soon as this year. But I'm thinking Valley of Tears is more likely to be a next year release. William Bird says World War II, number 2 American Civil War, number 3 World War One. Downtown is not a tactical game. I mean. So recognize that there isn't like a switch that has 3 positions. One says strategic, one says operational, one says tactical. Kind of a classic problem in wargame design is, who are you as the player? What decision space are you being placed in as the player? And designers have struggled, and players too, have struggled with this because the wargame, there's been a tendency in war games over the course of the development of commercial war games in the last 50 years to spread that out a lot more than in just one decision space, where I am the division commander, I'm making divisional command decisions. Well, okay, but you're probably making corps level command decisions and regiment or brigade level command decisions as well. And then you're probably making somewhat tactical decisions. So there isn't like a switch with 3 positions here when you talk about strategic versus operational versus tactical. It's a continuum, or if you like, a dial. And the dial is very inaccurate, right? So you might say, and there's no other way to describe something like A World in Flames. What is it? Okay, what pigeonhole does it fall into? And you say it's a strategic level World War II. But you've got units as small as divisions down there. And a division is, in World War II, is normally an operational scale, right? You are making, to some extent, divisional decisions in that game. I recognize that the divisional units are optional, but, still they're in there. And it's super detailed. You're making production decisions that aren't strictly military decisions and political decisions that aren't strictly military decisions. So there's like this sort of web of decision space present in the game. All right. That whole, like, I don't even want to call it a series because they don't all have the same rules, but that family of Lee Brimacombe Wood air games kind of straddles operational and tactical. They have operational elements. I got a big argument with Stigler about this a couple weeks ago. They have operational elements and they have tactical elements. And to me, the one in the series that I've actually played is Red Storm, which is the Cold War gone hot one, ironically enough. And to me, it felt more tactical. But that may have been an artifact of the scenario we were playing too, where we weren't making the political decisions. We had the missions all set up for us already. So, Jeff Baylor's correct. Yes, that's not Ryan Hellman. That is a Brian Train game. I apologize to both Ryan and Brian, who are they both Canadian? I wonder. I don't think Ryan Hellman is Canadian, actually.
No, he's not.
So Brian Train is, though.
Yeah, Ryan Hellman is from German descent.
Charles Torres says World War II, World War I, American Civil War, and American Revolutionary War. I've got about 5 games on the American Revolution, 5 or 6, I think. Because the shelves are kind of all broken up. I'm like in this massive friggin' shelving project, and I've got almost all the war games ready to go, and I have very low confidence in my ability to get the RPGs all shelved without leaving shit in boxes. That's what's going to be on this wall that you used to be able to see in frame here. The wall behind me is all war games. And I got to figure out what to do with all these friggin' magazines too, by the way. Anybody want some magazines?
Yeah, I want magazines.
Okay, well, I can send you some magazines. I just bought 2 more magazines.
There's another topic I really like there. It's Weird War 3.
What do you mean Weird War? Because I wouldn't call that a topic. I'd call that a theme. That a couple of games have explored. Lee Grant says Cold War gone hot, World War II, Napoleonics, and American Civil War. William Aaron says Napoleonics, American Civil War, colonial and early American period, 1754 to 1815. That's actually, I think that's a legit way to describe that period, right? Not a word about plumbing. We're not allowed to talk about plumbing or any kind of plumbing stuff tonight. Now I've got the one game I've got. I had Red Storm. I don't know what the hell happened to it. It just vanished. I may have given it away in a giveaway, thinking I wanted to get rid of it, and then I changed my mind and bought the expansion. So now I got an expansion and all kinds of add-ons that I bought from the Game Crafter, nothing to do with it. I may give those away or something like that. Who knows? So another one that I have, which is in that sort of family, but really doesn't have the same system, is the Burning Blue, which is the Battle of Britain. To me, that's considerably more interesting than really any of the other topics that series family has covered, with the possible exception of Bloody April, the World War I one, which creates confusion when it's got the same name as an old game. I hate that.
You're talking about Lee Brimacombe Wood.
Lee Brimacombe Wood, yeah. I'm not sure who designed the Burning Blue. It might not have been him. He's done most of those, but not all of them himself, as I recall. That was an operational. Yeah, so I mean, again, I think Flat Top actually, and I love Flat Top. Flat Top's one of my favorite Avalon Hill games. I think it's got tactical elements to it as well. If I am forced to pick a category because say BGG demands a category, then I agree. I'm going to call it operational in the case of Flat Top. But there are tactical decisions to be made in there as well. You're floating individual boats, so I think so. Richard Lord, welcome to the stream. Says 30 Years War, English Civil War, American Civil War, World War II, and World War I. 30 Years War is interesting too. And that's another one where maybe there's more games on the topic than people think, because there's a lot of battle games that you don't necessarily know the names of every single battle in a 30 Years War. Speaking of which, very much looking forward to Cuius Regio coming from GMT at some point. It's made its numbers, so. And that's a 30 Years War on a hex map. A hex map which looks fantastic, by the way. So, Raccoon Tycoon. I don't know what he's even talking about at this point. I assume that is something you can buy on Steam. Stickler says there's no tactical elements to flat top.
Yeah, what does he know?
You can, in fact, have a task force that has one ship in it. So, and there's even maybe reasons to do that. So you can actually make those decisions, but you don't have a ton of decision-making ability over that one ship other than where it's going. And if it's an aircraft carrier, then you've got a lot of decisions to manage. I mean, you've got to like assign all the flights, right? So I'm just saying. Never trust a man who's getting a paycheck from Decision Games is all I'm saying. Now, Musket and Pike I have obtained recently, and I have very little in that entire period. That's sort of, I guess, well, since I thought a lot about the CSR categories, I'll just use the CSR category of gunpowder, which is like post-medieval and then say, 19th century, right? Excluding probably American Revolution. There is actually Gilbert Collins did a game, a video on a game called Marlboro, I believe, not too long ago, and I guess Gilbert did not care for it, so it was poorly received by him. And I think it was might have been a magazine game. So I mean, so Musket and Pike looks very promising, and I'm a sucker for that stuff that GMT's been leaning into lately of saying, hey, we've got these old games that were quite popular back in the day, and they're kind of high priced on the secondary market. So we're going to reprint them, but we're going to put a bunch of them together in one pack with maybe some bonus materials that appeared in C3I and some extra battles or whatever. And this Musket and Pike dual pack is one of those. It would have been cooler if it was a 3-pack, but you get what you get. Is that in the shrink wrap? I'm just asking.
Maybe.
And the reason I'm asking is because you should check out the map quality in that thing. You'd think the paper quality was from Clash of Arms. It's really amazing paper quality. And I wonder if that's going to be a thing that we see more often from GMT.
I just had Ben Hull on.
You did?
And I wanted to know about his weapons that he uses, and the guy's an authority on this stuff, man.
Oh, and Ben Hull is really a sharp dude. I feel stupid when talking to him. So, Richard Lord likes playing the SPI version of Musket and Pike, of which, ample examples of that. But so that's like a very fertile period, right? That sort of gunpowder period that incorporates a lot of stuff. It's 30 years where gunpowder or medieval, I'd probably call it gunpowder without actually looking into it. But you've got, the 7 Years' War in there, all those various 17th and 18th century wars of Louis XIV, the War of the Spanish Succession, the War of the Austrian Succession, the Anglo-Dutch Wars, which there's very little coverage of. So there's like a lot there that Musket and Pike is kind of, I don't want to say there's not that much coverage of, but because it's so many different topics that are kind of grouped into this one relatively unpopular category called gunpowder, it feels like until you start looking at it and saying, okay, so 7 Years' War, there's a fair amount of stuff on the 7 Years' War, for example, but there's not that much on the War of the Austrian Succession. So Stigler says he might have done too good a job on Musket and Pike. I'm real impressed with the package of the new one too, by the way. And that's going to be, by the way, I strongly suspect that's going to be a 3D printed storage solution as well. So,
and he's got 27 pages of rules in small writing.
Oh dear, small writing. Get out your magnifying glass. So. Yeah, so I mean, GMT has really nailed a lot of these. I guess I'll count Death Valley as well, but that's a completely new product for the most part. I recognize that some of the battles in there did appear back in the SPI days, but not under this system, so I wouldn't count that. But you got the Men of Iron Tri-Pack, which is a fabulous product, loaded with content. You've got the tri-packs for the Battles of the American Revolution system by Mark Miklos. Those are really good. I haven't had a chance to play them yet. There's a number volume 2s on P500, and that's made its number, and that order didn't get canceled. I'm very excited about that. So I'm all aboard whenever GMT wants to reprint like older games in a combined value package, that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm checking out the maps like you asked me to check there.
Yeah, they're kind of a nice
it's
linen finish.
Linen. It's like linen something.
Yeah, they're nice. They're really nice. It's the kind of thing that I would think Clash of Arms does all the time.
Wow, that's something.
Sting was talking about new musket and pike for several years called Now Troubles Thunder Down. That sounds like an anime, actually, 4 random English words put together in a random order. So there is the follow-up system too, that's on P500 as well, and that's a Ben Hull thing. And I don't have a good sense of how that differs from musket and pike, but I know it's covering, you know, an adjacent era in that period.
Jesus, GMT goes all out for Ben Hull, man.
Well, why not? His games seem to be popular. What has Ben Hull done besides? I know he's got other credits besides musket and pike.
Yeah, Fields of Fire.
Yeah, good call. Good call. So I'm looking at. I'm going to start with This Accursed Civil War, which I think we'll all agree is a wonderful title. Interesting. Fields of Fire, but it looks like he's also done a game or two for Vevictus magazine. Wars of Religion, and Won by the Sword, which is a game with a fairly divisive reputation. That may have been one of the. It's kind of a big deal when GMT does this, and then everybody forgets about it for a couple of years, except when that specific game is brought up. But it may have been one of those things where they accidentally set some previous playtest version to the printer, and that's what got printed. That's happened at least once. I'm not sure if it was this game or not. So they had to fix it. And it got a completely revised rule book, and there may have been an actual update kit. I'm not sure. And for those who stuck with it and got the like updated stuff, they generally have a fairly high opinion of Won by the Sword. But the people who got it and dumped it immediately because the original product was, you know, deemed not as good as it should have been for whatever reason that was, probably have a sour taste in their mouth, and that's kind of understandable. I don't remember seeing anything like that, Stegler, on P500, but you know, sometimes these things are way into development by the time they hit P500, and sometimes they're like literally the designer jotted down an idea on a cocktail napkin and handed it to Gene Billingsley, and off we go. So I mean, I may be mischaracterizing that, but it does seem a little bit the state of games when they are announced and they get put on P500 seems to vary a lot to me with GMT. So I've got all 4. There's 4 of these now. It started with No Peace Without Spain. The latest is No Peace Without Honor. The other ones are 9 Years, which is about the 9 Years' War, or the War of the Grand Alliance, as it was also called. The other 2 are about the War of the Spanish Succession and the War of the Austrian Succession. These are very interesting topics that have traditionally been undercovered in war games. They are all point-to-point card-driven games. So if you don't want a point-to-point card and relatively low complexity, so if that's where you're at on these topics. And for me, that varies by topic, right? This is one reason why I stayed away from La Bataille for a long time, is because that was not where I was on Napoleonics. I was just happy with my, divisional scale Library of Napoleonics battle stuff. These have a pretty strong reputation as a series, especially No Peace Without Spain. There's other topics such as the Anglo-Dutch Wars that they could potentially cover. Those are mostly naval conflicts, so I don't know that that's doable, but, it's another thing that I haven't seen much of. Otherwise, if you're interested in those topics, the 9 Years' War, the Austrian Succession, Spanish Succession, that kind of stuff, you're kind of looking at old S&Ts, and I don't know if that's necessarily worthwhile or not. Pretty much Strategy and Tactics magazine. So there is an RPG. I forget who the publisher was because they never did anything else. There was an RPG called Fulminata, which is an alternate history where the Romans do invent gunpowder, and it is called Fulminata Lightning. And you get like a couple of 100 years of alternate history. And I think where the game kind of picks up is during the crisis of the 3rd century. So as I recall, I might be misremembering that. But there's like, you could kind of play it as a straight alternate history or as a fantasy game. There's like a magic system in there that you don't have to use. But it's a pretty neat game. It uses 8-sided dice for everything because a particular type of Roman die was 8-sided apparently. So now Troubles Thunder Down. I don't like that title. In period quote or not, I don't think it makes a good title.
What's like shit rolls downhill?
Well, it's not that. It's that it seems like out of its natural context, I think it sounds like a poor random English words put together like the title of an anime. So, but I too would be curious as to the progress of future installments in the Musket and Pike series. There is certainly plenty of stuff they could cover. Same thing with Men of Iron, except that we do have an upcoming Men of Iron volume in Norman Conquest. So,
Men of Iron, that's not Ben Hull?
No, that's Richard Berg, actually.
Right.
But obviously the new one's from a different designer. So, and for that matter, I'd love to know what's up with Great Battles of History, because I'd be delighted to see new volumes in that series as well. Now that I have all of them, I finally obtained a copy of Lion of the North at a price I felt like paying, meaning about $30. So
how much does this game go for? About $100?
Oh, I don't know, but that sounds approximately right.
There's a hell of a lot of game in here, man.
Oh yeah, there sure is. Even though it's a dual pack and not a tri-pack, $75 MSRP. I would consider. So this is another, these like multi-packs that GMT has been doing. I think I may have just listed all of them are almost unbeatable values for money, assuming you are into the topic, right? If you are not into, so that box has some English Civil War stuff and some Great Northern War, I believe. Might be 7 Years' War.
You're talking about the dual pack.
The dual pack, yeah.
It's got 11 battles from the 30 Years' War and the First English Civil War.
30 Years' War?
Yeah.
Okay. So the battles are Edge Hill, First Newbury, Cheriton, Capriti Bridge, which, believe it or not, I've got 2 games on. Marston Moor, Second Newbury, Naseby, 1645, Nordlingen, Wittstock, Second Breitenfeld, and Yankau, 1645. Pulling that up. Yeah, okay, so that is kind of late. I don't know if it's late 30 Years' War or not, but it's 30 Years' War. So yeah, I'm delighted to see more out of that series. I think certainly the 30 Years' War. There's a lot of battles in the 30 Years' War. It did, after all, take 30 years to finish it. So yeah, and this is true of the new game big packs too, right? Like Death Valley. There's a tremendous value in. Again, assuming you're okay with the game system and you are into the topic, unbeatable value for money on this stuff.
Unbeatable.
So, I mean, it's got to help that they could probably print, 10,000 of. I don't know what the actual number is. I'm pulling that out of my ass, but
you think they'll sell 10,000 of these games?
It's probably not 10,000. It's probably more like 5,000. But that's an order. That's a lot more than anybody else is printing. So, and that means they're saving money. So
yeah, that's true. But they
had like 4,000 pre-orders for Pacific War, pre-orders alone. So
how many?
Like 4,000.
Bloody hell!
It was a lot.
They must have printed 10 on that.
Maybe, I don't know. It might have been 6 or 8, or I don't know. But Mark has said he expects it to sell out, and I expect it to sell out, frankly. And also, frankly, I expect it to go for $200 or $300 once it does sell out. So I'd have preferred. My wife got this for me for Valentine's Day, I believe. I would have preferred the Errol Otis cover from the 1981 Moldvay edition, but you know, it's still a lovely shirt. So I don't know. I mean, I don't like to speculate about the print numbers because I feel like I sound like a moron because I don't know what the print numbers are. Now, have I occasionally been privy to a number or two? Yes, but I don't know necessarily how applicable those numbers are across the board.
What is it, a
But
secret or something?
well, I don't know that it's a secret, but GMT's not like announcing that we printed 7,687 of these. I mean, they're not saying that. So it's too speculative, right? Unless I have an actual number for a specific game, I feel like I sound like an armchair knucklehead. So I'd rather not. But I mean, obviously GMT's printing more than like MMP, right, or Compass or anybody else in this space. Maybe Academy's printing more, but Academy does relatively fewer games too, right? Academy's not knocking out 3 or 4 games a month, and GMT is. So
yeah,
this is another. What's that?
No, go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, I've agreed with this too. So that just went to final proofing, by the way, on to Richmond 2 from MMP. Now that I think it's like $200 pre-order price. So it's expensive, but you're also getting a lot of stuff into it. You're getting basically 3 games in one there. And I haven't the slightest doubt that I will get the play value out of that thing. Stigler points out that by Swords and Bayonets, which is his small battle pack for Great Battles of the American Civil War, is closing in on 1,000 pre-orders.
That's awesome, man.
I'm also told that the real number nowadays is about 750 for GMT. For it to actually hit
P500,
hit the production queue. They really want about 7.
That's been a while.
But it depends too, right? So there's, if it's like Twilight Struggle, who cares what the pre-order number is? It's like, come on. So and sometimes the Commands and Colors sugar daddy will stop by with a check and say, print my Commands and Colors again, please. So now exactly how that works, I have no idea, but that is the name by which I am referring to that person. So
man,
Imperial Rome war game. Do you want a hex encounter thing? You want a strategic tactical level gamer's closet? So there's a decent amount of stuff. Some folks have said they liked Time of Crisis. I played it. I did not like it. It is a game about the crisis of the 3rd century. So great topic. The designer Ray Farrell has done several other Roman games that I have liked, including Sword of Rome. If you were into tactical, SPQR from GMT is again unbeatable value for the money. So
what's Mike Bertuccelli saying here?
You hit it and I unhit it. The Mike says that the problem is shipping to Europe has cut into the P500 numbers, which are down all around because of it.
What do you mean? I don't get it. I'm mixed up.
So I think the answer to that is that folks are choosing to buy the games from a, say, Dutch retailer rather than through GMT on P500 because of the shipping costs to Europe. I believe that's what Mike's referring to here. And I certainly know that, and don't get me wrong, this is justified, but there's nothing we can do about that, right? You got it. That's a governmental decision for the most part if you got to put up with import fees and stuff like that. So there's shipping cost, actual transportation costs too, which is another thing. How would I rate Zucker's OSG against other Napoleonic series on play cost and completeness value? So I think what we're talking about here is the Library of Napoleonic Battles, which is the sort of grand tactical series that he's got just announced the latest volume, which will be out early next year, called Napoleon's End, the very end of the campaign in France in 1814. Great topic. So generally you'll get 3 to 5 battles in those boxes. Okay. And usually you'll get 1 or 2 scenarios out of each battle, sometimes more. And usually there's a campaign, but sometimes the like Napoleon against Russia, I mean, the battles are hundreds of miles apart. So the campaign is pretty much here to play the battles in order. So in terms of like a number of scenarios, it's not as obviously high replay value than something like Great Battles of Alexander or SPQR that has like, you know, something like 20 different battles in the set. And like GBOH, some of those battles are not going to be balanced right now. There's been some effort. It's not going to cover every battle of the Napoleonic Wars because you can't, and some of them don't work for the scale. Some of those battles are not going to be exceptionally well balanced. It's just the way it is, right? So, well, I think you could certainly get several plays out of a lot of the better known battles. You might play something like I'm not going to name a specific example, but there's probably some of the battles probably have limited replay value, but some of them have pretty high replay value. I'm kind of talking my way through this question. So I would say they stack up very well, but it's hard based on the prices where you're also looking at about the same price as this thing from GMT that's got 15 battles in it. It's hard to compare that, right? But it's, you know, Kevin has objected when I've said it's pretty much a one-man operation. He does have people helping him, but you know, it's an extremely small operation over at OSG. So,
hey, Jason Cruz is in the house. Jason Cruz, AJ Toynbee, Jason Cruz. What's my next game gonna? What's on my radar? Let me tell you something. There's John Butterfield's thingy there. What's it called?
away team?
Is it away team?
Well, you're talking about the sci-fi thing?
Yeah. That's
away team.
The next thing.
That's away team. David Heath. Oh, we just kicked him out. Dan kicked you out. I'm sorry, David.
Can you guys hear me?
We can
yeah,
now.
We can hear you.
Look at that fancy microphone. I don't have
Look at David Heath go, man.
Look at that.
It's for my gigolo shows. You know, gotta have a little light.
He had to buy a fancy microphone for his OnlyFans.
That's right.
So,
hey, Dave,
I already run an only fan page.
Dave, we were talking about lock and load games and all that. What's happening? You know,
right?
And I asked Artie, and he didn't know. But what's happening with the stock that you have on lock and load tactical and all that stuff? Once it runs out, are you going to be reprinting any, or are you going? Is it going to be a digital focus thing for you?
No, we're going to reprint them. We just had a big conversation about that in the last 2 weeks, and again today. We're going to have, and you're going to hear it here first, a 50% off sale starting in April.
Ooh,
bloody hell!
It's going to be to, you know, get the few remaining copies of certain games gone. The goal here is take Heroes of Normandy. Okay, it's been out of print now for over a year, I guess. I can't see us reprinting that because it's sold so many copies already. I'm sure there's a few people who want to get a copy of it, but does it qualify for a print run? My argument is no. Okay. So what we're thinking of doing is making what we call theater-based games. So for haha's sake, and this is again still, you know, in the works here. Let's say we call it Heroes of the Western Front 44, or you called it Heroes of the Eastern Front, and it goes from 39 to 41. Okay. Outside of fanatics of ASL or something like that, most people don't care about the Romanians or the Hungarians or, you know, whoever else in there.
well, the Hungarians do.
No, I do, but it is a sliver of the very small sliver of the war game community. And that's not to say they didn't participate in their own way and didn't have a critical part in certain battles and stuff. I'm not saying anything like that, but interest in sales. If I give you Quarantine, or I give you Warsaw, or I give you the Battle for Stalingrad, those things are going to sell based on name recognition. And most war gamers never have enough of those games.
That's true.
We've established that there is an unlimited appetite for Stalingrad and Bulge games.
Right.
Yes.
So what we're thinking of doing is we went through the entire Normandy collection. We have all the add-ons and everything else, and we figured out, hey, just as an example, if you got 10 U.S. airborne squads in Heroes of Normandy or any other game, make sure the scenarios all cover that's already existing 10 squads. Then I asked Stefan, how many squads do you want to have for the future? He may say 20 total. And we're going to base our counter sheets around that, but we're going to add from the get-go French Resistance, the Canadian, maybe the Poles.
Dan is excited about the Canadians.
Yeah.
So, you know.
We may even have another Dan County. You never know.
No, but I mean, the Canadians, they should have its own lock and load tactical thing. Come on, Dave. Bloody hell.
You guys are too peace loving.
You gotta have a counter for the Canadians that says no bullets.
Right.
A status marker. We are Canadians and we have no bullets because of that Dick Monty.
There you
Took
go.
all the bullets for Market Garden.
And so the object here is to build 15 new scenarios, put all these counters in there, and then take the oldest scenarios, add the solitaire setups, and then turn around and release them as, like, say, battle packs for those who have the new game. So if you have the old game, doesn't matter. You have everything you need, and you'll have no problems.
Dave, another question. Is print run a secret when it comes to publishers like yourself?
Not to me.
But in general, is it a secret? Like, why is it a secret if it's a secret?
I don't think it's an actual secret.
Some people, yeah, I think some publishers don't want people to know how many games they're selling or how many games they have. And then you've got all the rocket scientists in the wargame community who can do math and figure out how much they've made and how much they didn't make, and you know, the conspiracy group.
But so what? It's a business.
So I will tell you that I will say that there are specific publishers that specifically go out of their way to keep those numbers quiet. They literally don't tell anybody. Like, even the designer doesn't necessarily know how many they printed.
I can safely tell you that all my designers know exactly how many games they print. They know exactly how many games they give away, etc. So that's not my hang up. I lie a lot too. But,
it's not like you can not tell the IRS, right? I mean, they don't care
about dollar signs.
Yeah, exactly. They don't care about the print run per se, but if they think you printed 10,000 and you declared that you made X dollars, doesn't add up. They might come and knocking.
That's true. I didn't think about that. About that, man. The tax stuff. It's true. I'm not a businessman. I'm just
Clearly
a lover.
Not. With a pork pie hat, as we've established. So,
and look at you, Dave. You look beautiful. Look at you.
Oh, thank you. I lost over 128 pounds now.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
God.
Good for you. That's tough.
Jess will do that for you.
That's tough. You know what else will? Heroin. So there's that. If you need any heroin, by the way, we have an ample supply here in Ohio, from what I hear. So
really,
I think so. Yeah, you could smell it in the air sometimes driving through rural Ohio. I'm like,
heroin.
Is that heroin? I'm pulling your leg here, but we do have a problem here in Ohio. I can tell you that.
Oh man.
Kevin says that I think he actually talked about this very publicly, actually, as their print run sizes. So yeah, not everybody is closed mouthed about it. So
on average, we print. Well, let me say this. I'm also changed my philosophy on this. We used to print whatever games we had pre-ordered plus another 1,000 or so. The problem is too many games being released now by too many people. I mean, I remember when I started Lock and Load, when I first bought it, I think there was only something like, 2,000 or 3,000 Kickstarters. And 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years ago, that number was over 7,000. And that's just in games. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, when you have that many games, how is the distributor legitimately going to buy a little bit of everyone's games? Mm. Then you've got to say, well, you make war games, so you're not even on the list. You're right over here, and then, of course, if you do take the game, they want 60, 70, 80% off. Well, why even bother selling to you then? Mm-hmm. And so my two new philosophies, I want to produce games like I'm the Ferrari of game publishing. I'm not saying that the games are the best of the best. I'm just saying is I want super thick boxes, thick counters, quality cuts, spiral bound rule books. I want when people get the game to feel it's perfect. As perfect as I'm going to get it.
Let me actually ask you about that, because I noticed the spiral bound rule books now. I mean, I assume that was a conscious decision. What was the kind of thought process that went into saying, hey, let's just spiral bound these things instead of perfect binding them or whatever you were using before?
Every game we sit down and we say, what can we do better? Okay. The last vote, the hilarious guy said, get rid of the publisher, but but outside of that little chat, we just try to look, what can we do better? So, you know, we got bitched on for putting too many player rate cards in the game. I don't know if you've heard that one. They were complaining, no game needs 14 player rate cards. And, you know, and that was because we wanted to make sure we had everything there so you didn't have to go look in the rules. I've said this before. Many years ago, I was up at Jeff Newell's convention in Oregon, in Seattle. And I was watching two friends of mine play Lock and Load Tactical. And these guys, every 5 seconds, were breaking out the rulebook. And these guys know the game. It wasn't like they played it for the first time or two. And I sat there and I drew away. Well, why would they keep looking in the freaking rulebook? It's because they don't know the rules. They can't find the rules. They're not easily referenced. And so when I came back, I said, guys, our rulebooks suck. And so that's when we came up with the 5-1 rulebook, was breaking it down, making everything in there, putting as much detail in as possible. So every time we go to print something, we decide how can we make it better. And one of the things came out was the spiral bound rulebook. People just really like that. They like the fact that it can fold over and lay flat. We want you to play the game, and that's the slogan we use sometimes, not play the rules. If I got to sit there and spend half my game time looking up the rules, I'm not talking the first time with you. I'm talking, you played it a few times. You probably made a bad rulebook. Or you made a game that's, you know, I need a law degree, in which case it's probably not for me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's unconventional, right? Relatively few publishers have gone with that. But then I see a perfect bound rule book, which is something that we've seen in a few places. I don't know that you've done any that I've seen. But they just like disintegrate immediately. So, you know, it's like, it feels weird, but it's better, right? It's just a better way to present the rule books. I mean, if you're selling it in a Ziploc, maybe that's not going to work for logistical reasons, but the whole theory behind just about everything we're doing is look at it like golf. Okay, you got $100,000 golf clubs, and you got the Walmart specials for $99. There's got to be a difference, you know. And the guys who play golf and love golf, and that's their hobbies and everything else, they're buying the best golf clubs and the best, you know, outfits, maybe even Dan's hat, okay, that you can get, you know, on the golf club field. And I think wargamers are the same way within their hobby. I don't think a $200 game is going to, I mean, I've bought games $300, $400, $500. I think my highest price game I ever bought was $750. Well, that's more than me.
But
but not radically more than me either.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm just saying this. You know, we'll buy that game, and you know, I can't buy one of those every week. Okay, but you know, you will buy it because that's your hobby. You know,
I buy one of those in a week, you're going to find my body buried in a shallow grave somewhere.
Well, see, I gotta work. I tell my wife it's for work. It's, you know, it's research.
This is research. This is research material.
I tell her that all the time.
Exactly.
Hey, David,
right.
your last question here. Your JU87 Stuka Ace. Why don't you call it STUKAJOE Ace?
It wasn't my name. It wasn't my name. I didn't know STUKAJOE has that copyrighted either. I didn't want a lawsuit.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's fair. That's fair. You just put a picture of him on the cover. I mean, that would be okay, right? Actually, somebody should Photoshop that. Since we've got Photoshop talent in the audience, I think we need that to be Photoshopped. So somebody get on that. So, and then I'll send it to Dan. So, All right. I'd like to thank, we're about out of time. I'd like to, and we're a little bit over actually. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. So thanks very much. Thank you especially to Mr. David Heath, who popped in at the last minute because presumably Dan sent him a last minute email. So his willingness to be the sucker that shows up at the last minute is always appreciated.
I'm a spontaneous guy. What do you want?
He is unpredictable is what it is. He's volatile.
I'm spontaneous.
The word I would use. All right, folks. So we'll be back next week on my channel. Check out Dan's show on Saturday morning and my show on Monday night and all the other shows that are on the place where you see the shows. Everybody have a great rest of the night.
Thank you for having me.
Big move. Big win. The moose is loose. Big moves. Big win. The moose is loose. Big moves. Big win. The moose is loose. Big. Big. Big.